What is up, you guys? Diggerdan here, coming at you with a book review. Today we're reviewing Relic, as you can read, by Douglas Preston and Lincoln Child. So without further ado, let's dig into it. So I want to give a little background on how I found this book. I actually found it at a library book sale. I think it was like a quarter or 50 cents, so less than $1, obviously. So very, very cheap. And I figured for that cheap, why not? It was in the fiction section. I knew very little about it aside from the title, the cover, which really intrigued me. You got this creature in the jungle, it looks like, and then just the synopsis on the back. I did a lot of the times when I do go to resale shops or book sales, whatever, and get them secondhand. I do, if I have the time, go on Goodreads and see reviews or see if it's part of the series. Well, Relic, I didn't do that. Again, it was a quarter, 50 cents, so very low investment into it. And just, this was very interesting to me. And I saw up top, it says far above Jurassic Park. I don't know if that's accurate in my opinion because I haven't read Jurassic Park. But I'm like, ooh, Jurassic Park, that's kind of cool. And then I saw on the back the synopsis talking about the New York Museum of Natural History, which I believe is what Night at Museum, the movie, was based in. So in my head, I'm like, that's cool, Jurassic Park and Night at the Museum mashup. That sounds really cool. So I was sold just on that alone, just looking at the book for 30 seconds. So what it's really about, I'll read the synopsis on the back real quick. Just days before a massive exhibition opens at the popular New York Museum of Natural History, visitors are being savagely murdered in the museum's dark hallways and secret rooms. Autopsies indicate that the killer cannot be human, but the museum's directors plan to go ahead with a big bash to celebrate the new exhibition in spite of the murders. Museum researcher Margot Green must find out who or what is doing the killing, but can she do it in time to stop the massacre? So yeah, again, reading that back just sold me. So this is kind of a semi-horror, horror-ish, and I didn't really think about that going into it. So if I would have thought about it, I probably would have read it during Spooktober, for my Spooktober book, but I did not do that. So if you are really into horror, this is gonna maybe tickle your fancy a little bit, but it's not, I would say, full-on horror genre. Although it is kind of gory, so maybe I would say horror-ish. But yeah, the way I'm going to structure this review is I'm going to actually rip off Two to Ramble. Those guys, if you haven't watched those guys, it's Austin and Richard. They mostly focus on books in fantasy and sci-fi, and that's kind of what I like to read. Again, this one's not really in either of those, so for my first review on YouTube, kind of random, but I did really enjoy the book. But anyway, I'm going to structure it based off them and how they do their reviews, because I really like that, and that's how I've been reviewing in my own catalog since I started watching them about a year ago, is that they go on 5 different categories. So emotional impact, characters, plot, dialogue, and world building are the 5. And then so you rate those out of 10, so it's a total of score out of 50, and then you just divide that by 5 to get your average. All right, so without getting into major spoilers, anything like that, my overall score for the book is 8.24, which I just described as out of 10. And once I kind of go into spoilers, then I'll start breaking down each category and scores and everything I liked about there, didn't like, things like that. But yeah, this book I would definitely recommend, especially if you can find it for less than $1 like I did. Yeah, and especially if you like semi-horror, or aren't turned off by like big bloody scenes or gore, things like that, at least in your reading. But yeah, something I was kind of thrown off guard when I started reading, or I guess didn't really recognize, is that the book was released in 1995, so it's almost 30 years old. And so some of the characters act a little differently, talk a little differently, do things a little differently, like cell phones, for example, wasn't really a thing in 95. So having that in the back of my head was important, because if they had a cell phone that could have solved some of the conflicts that the a lot of the characters faced. Made it easier to would have made it easier to communicate and those types of things. And like the internet was kind of like just like still not in its inception, but was pretty short-lived compared to the last 30 years, so it's not nearly as powerful. Computers aren't nearly as powerful as they are today. So it was just kind of funny to read some of the things in the book. But it's still, honestly, with that in mind, it still holds up. It is still a really compelling story. And yeah, I'm not doing it justice in me describing this, and I apologize. So yeah, with no spoilers, I recommend Relic. Absolutely. So, all right, I got starting. So, and if you don't want spoilers, click off now. Nice knowing you. Thanks for clicking on the video. Thanks for watching. And yeah, so let's dig into spoilers now. All right, and now officially for spoilers, starting with emotional impact. So for emotional impact, overall, I rated it at an 8.2 out of 10, which is pretty much there with the average. If the book average, or my book's overall score is 8.24. Now, what do I mean by emotional impact? I mean, I guess how emotionally invested was I into the story? How did it make, like, did the horror aspects scare me? Did the high tension moments, or supposed to be high tension moments, feel tense? Did the humor land? Was it funny? Did it, like, was I invested in that humor or funny? Like, did the action scenes like pump me up? Was I, overall, like, that kind of feel? So I feel like 8.25 is pretty good. Because like I said, for the scary bits, especially in the climax, when the beast, the one who walks on all fours, I think that's what it was called, right? Because I don't know how to say the actual name. Is it He Who Walks on All Fours? Yeah, He Who Walks on All Fours. I'm sorry. So yeah, like, so when He Who Walks on All Fours, at the end of the, like, on that final night, or not final night, because they had epilogue and all that good stuff, but on that, the night of the exhibition opening, and He Who Walks on All Fours just wrecking people's shit. And like when the SWAT team came down and they felt like they had things under control, and then the monster sees them and he just rips them to shreds, and like that was crazy. Like I was rooting for the humans, obviously, but just the fact that like that powerful of a creature can just rip through, like, as a team of like 4 or 5 SWAT team guys with like full automatic weapons, it's like literal machine guns. So crazy stuff. So I was pretty invested. There were some scenes that fell flat. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I just remember reading some just like, that could have been a little better. But yeah, it was great. Emotionally invested for sure. Especially with the epilogue. Like, I forget the guy's name. Let me see here. It was like Frock's, or Dr. Frock's other assistant, other student. Let me see what his name is. Kowika, or it's his last name. Kawakita. Kowika. I don't know. He's the other one, like, in tandem with Margot. And just his whole thing, like, being able to kind of reverse engineer the plant at the end and like making it into a drug. That crazy. That's crazy. It makes me want to read on for sure. So yeah, very high emotional impact. Next is characters. That was a little higher at an 8.7. Basically, how invested are you in the characters? Did you like them? Did you hate the villains? Because that's kind of how they're. Or did you like the people you're supposed to like, and did you dislike the people you're supposed to dislike? So yeah, like Pendergast, or Agent Pendergast, he was amazing. Which I think actually Preston and Child, like, they continue in the world of this, but they follow Pendergast. From my understanding, they have like over a dozen books following Pendergast, which makes me happy because he was probably my favorite character. But like Margot, she was good. Dr. Frock was really entertaining. And just kind of the whole supporting cast. Like Lieutenant DaCosta, He was fun, or not fun, but he fit kind of that generic like hard ass cop thing really well. And then Smith back, the journalist, like he would weasel his way in. You would kind of be annoyed in some instances, but then he would save the day in others. So just kind of on that emotional roller coaster with a lot of these people. And then I forget the other FBI agent's name that was kind of took over from Pendergast. And then he was a dick. You didn't like him, but again, he was meant to be that person you didn't like. So yeah, just characters. I was emotionally invested. I kind of want to keep going with these characters, but also like how it ended. Like before the epilogue, I'm like, okay, cool. This story's nice wrap up. How it had with the 4 weeks later and then the 6 months later. That was good. And then it had the epilogue, and I'm like, holy crap, holy crap. So yeah, like I would be excited to continue with these characters. Let's just say that. So yeah, emotionally invested there. Now plot. It's just, how do you feel about the plot? Did it fall flat? Did you enjoy it? Was it engaging? I put this as my highest. This was a 9.1. The plot itself was really, really good, in my opinion. And I didn't talk about this yet, but just how the authors explain kind of the sciencey bits, because it is kind of science-heavy focused, with an investigation of DNA and like comparing from animals to human and blood, like just all these different things. But it broke it down in very easy layman's terms. It took a little bit to get there, but it did. So that was comforting to see. It kind of made you feel smart, which was cool. But yeah, the plot overall, just in the beginning, being thrown in with the exhibition with Whiteley's like little snippet that you got, being in the Amazon rainforest, and then immediately going to like pretty much modern day New York City museum. It was cool, kind of following everything throughout. Plot overall is really good. Probably my favorite plot point, honestly, is probably in the epilogue when Kawika, that's how I'm going to call him now, Kawika, when he kind of surmised that he who walks on all fours was actually Professor or Dr. Whiteley. That was kind of a mind blow moment. Like, holy crap, that's crazy, actually. Wouldn't even thought about that. Wouldn't have put that together. But that was really good. And even honestly, just the whole way that the day of the exhibition opening, like that night, played out. I mean, it was definitely the biggest chunk of the book. But just the way that played out, jumping around from different POVs, and just it was great. It was good. Very good. That's all I have to say about that, really. Next, is dialogue, excuse me. So 7.2, so a little lower. But again, some of it was like very sciencey bits, like I kind of talked about, where some of it was just over my head, some of it was just dragging a little bit. But for the most part, like I said, it did make you feel smart at times. Dialogue did. But other times it's just like, why is this guy got to be an ass? Like, that's, again, that kind of falls with characters too. But it was good. Dialogue, like, it didn't fall flat. Sometimes it did, but for the most part, it was still pretty good. It kept the story moving along. Some bits of dialogue were definitely there for just to push the plot forward. Which is fine. Where it's like just like, I don't really have an example off the top of my head, but there were instances where it's like someone just had like randomly spit something out that had nothing to do with what they were talking about for the last couple pages, which was kind of weird. I think Dr. Frock at one point, he was like thinking, and then he just like spit something out, and I'm like, where did that come from? And then I'm like, oh yes, you're right. We didn't think about that at all. The monster must be thinking like this, which is how, and then that's how they continue, and that's how they assume, which is fine. But there were just a couple instances like that where it's like, okay, all right, cool. So it just knocked it down a little bit for me. Not crazy, still good overall, but yeah, that's how I felt about that. And then final is world building. Again, normally this is in tandem with like a fantasy novel or sci-fi, things like that. So with it being kind of quote unquote modern day New York back in '95, it's modern day, or it's '95 New York, which is kind of cool. But for me, kind of the world building aspect was kind of exploring the museum and seeing all the different like exhibits and seeing all like the different sciences and how they interact, the cast, how they interact in the different wings. Just overall, like, is for a real world fiction novel, it's about as much world building as you can get, without throwing like out of this world aspects. That's when you go into the sci-fi or the fantasy. But yeah, so that's just a solid 8. I don't know if I mentioned that yet. So yeah, solid 8. But again, a lot of that was just from getting to explore the museum under like Margot's eyes, for example, or through Pendergast's eyes when he was exploring the sub-basement, all those things. So yeah, that's my overall thoughts. I wish I would have put a little more thought into this and have pinpoint things. But yeah, it's just kind of my little ramble there. So yeah, Relic 8.24. What did you guys think about it? Did you guys really enjoy this? Did you guys not like it? Have you guys read any more of the books following Agent Pendergast? Have you liked those? Yeah, please throw those in the comments down below. I'd love to hear from you guys. So thanks for watching, guys. Again, Diggerdan, that's me. If you guys like this, please hit like down below. Want to see more from me, Diggerdan, please hit that subscribe button as well as that bell notification icon so you guys know when I upload each and every single time. And yeah, I will catch you guys in the next one. Ciao.